Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tips. My name is Julian, and today we're going to be talking about some guys that you should probably be dropping from your fantasy team this week, week 3 of the fantasy season. Before we get into it, guys, leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I would really appreciate your support. Without further ado, let's jump right into some forwards that I think you should probably drop. So first on the list, guys, is Kyle Palmieri, New Jersey Devils, 56% owned, and unfortunately he's off to a really slow start to the season with only 3 points in 8 games, and they're all assists. He's not doing so hot because the Devils don't have the most potent offense. Yes, when Nico Hischier returns, there's a chance that Palmieri will turn it around a little bit, but I'd rather grab someone else on the waiver wire. There are a lot better options. Now, I can say the same with almost every single player on the New Jersey Devils. They're all droppable right now, especially since they don't have any games until next week. So holding on to a New Jersey player that's not even that good doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The only Devils players that I would keep on my team right now are Ty Smith, Nico Hischier, Mackenzie Blackwood, and Jack Hughes. Everyone else is pretty much droppable. Next on the list, guys, are two Las Vegas Golden Knights, Riley Smith and William Karlsson, 53 and 40% owned. And right now they're both playing on a line together, and neither of them are performing all that well. Now, in categories leagues, they don't put up very good peripherals, so they're a pretty easy drop at the moment. In points leagues, however, I might hold on to William Karlsson a little bit longer because he's still getting that top power play time, so it makes him a little bit more valuable, and the points should start coming. Next on the list, guys, is Tyler Mott, Vancouver Canucks, 45% owned, and he's being added like crazy right now, and I don't really get it because he's a fourth liner. He's not going to put up that many points at all. He's putting up some points right now, but his shooting percentage is pretty crazy, so obviously he's not going to keep that up. He's a fourth liner getting not that many minutes. I understand that he leads the league right now in hits, so if you're in a bangers league where hits really count for a lot, or you're in a categories league and you need some hits, Mott is a decent option. But outside of those types of leagues, he doesn't make sense to own. So 45% owned doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's basically the exact same thing for Brandon Tanev. Right now he sits second in the league for hits, but he has 2 games in hand on Mott. So if you need hits, you can keep him on your team. Otherwise, drop him. He's completely useless outside of that stat category. Next is Adam Lowry, Winnipeg Jets, 22% owned, and he's currently Winnipeg's third line center. He's centering Matthew Perreault and Appleton. That's all you really need to know. Yeah, he's hot right now, but come on. He's not going to keep that up. Next is Phillip Danault, Montreal Canadiens, 21% owned, and he's a good player. He's a really, really great defensive forward, but unfortunately he's not putting up points really this season, and he's not getting any power play time at all. So right now I would drop him and maybe scoop him up if Montreal ever has a favorable schedule in the future. Next is Jeff Skinner, Buffalo Sabres, 19% owned, and I've had him on this list every single week so far, and I'm going to keep having him on this list until he's below 10% owned. He's still skating on Buffalo's fourth line and second power play. He really does not have a big opportunity to really put up points this year. I don't get why he's still owned in 19% of leagues. Next is Tim Stützle, Ottawa Senators, 20% owned, and he showed a lot of promise, right? He was drafted 3rd overall, but Ottawa's not really giving him a big chance to succeed. His line mates aren't that amazing, and he's not being played on that top power play. Until that changes, I'd rather not keep him on my team. I know he scored goals in back-to-back games, but before that, he really wasn't doing much. Next is Jeff Carter, Los Angeles Kings, 16% owned, and his triple eligibility for center, left wing, and right wing makes him a pretty desirable play, but unfortunately he's just not putting up the numbers right now. Earlier in the season, it looked like he had some really nice chemistry with Andreas Athanasiou, but right now Athanasiou's on the COVID list, and he's currently playing with Wagner and Amadio. That's a really not a great line, so Jeff Carter is a pretty easy drop right now. Last but not least, guys, is Drake Batherson, Ottawa Senators, 8% owned. And I was pretty high on him at the start of the year because he was playing top line minutes and top power play. But man, Ottawa just sucks. They haven't won since the very first game, and they've been letting in so many goals. The plus minus is just not great, and they're not finding the back of the net often enough. And to make matters worse, Drake Batherson was just demoted off that top line onto the second line. He's still getting top power play time, but to me, that's not enough right now. If anyone's curious, Josh Norris in Ottawa is also a drop for me right now. Moving on to some defensemen. First on the list is Mark Giordano, Calgary Flames, 78% owned, and I think you should trade him ASAP because he is not getting that top power play time. Rasmus Andersson has looked really, really good this season on that top power play. He only has 3 points through 9 games, so the sooner you can trade him, the better, because he'll probably start to be mass dropped very soon. Next is Ryan Pulock, New York Islanders, 67% owned, and he was recently taken off that top power play, and Noah Dobson is looking really good on that top unit. So if I were you, I'd try to trade Pulock away as soon as possible while he still has some value, and if you can, pick up Noah Dobson from free agency. Next is Tony DeAngelo, New York Rangers, 37% owned. And I think everybody knows at this point what's going on with DeAngelo. The Rangers said, we're never playing you again, and they're trying to trade him away while retaining some of his cap. Now, there's a star here because if he gets traded, DeAngelo might actually have some fantasy value. Now, obviously, right now, he has no fantasy value, so if you're in a pretty shallow league, he's an easy drop. But rumor has it he's going to be traded really, really shortly, so he might have some fantasy value again pretty quickly. So keep an eye on that, and if he gets traded, just try to scoop him up off your waiver wire if he's available. Next is Ryan Graves, Colorado Avalanche, 36% owned, and I don't really get the ownership percentage anymore. He's not doing a whole lot, and his numbers have really taken a toll not playing next to Cale Makar. He's a pretty easy drop right now. Next is Alexander Romanov, Montreal Canadiens, 34% owned. And he was mass dropped pretty recently because he was a healthy scratch last game. But that was more just to make Victor Mete happy, to get him a couple of games in so that he wouldn't want to be traded anymore. Now, when Romanov's in the lineup, he's still centering that second power play, which is getting about half the power play time. So he's definitely not the worst hold in the world in deep leagues. I would also hold on to him in categories leagues, especially ones with hits, because his peripherals across the board are pretty good. In Cats leagues with no hits, though, or in just point leagues, he's pretty easily droppable right now, unfortunately. Next is Justin Schultz, Washington Capitals, 30% owned, and his ownership percentage kind of blows my mind. He had 3 really good games, but he was having those games because he was being played on that top power play while Ovechkin and while Kuznetsov were on the COVID list. Ovechkin is healthy now, so Schultz won't be on that top power play unit anymore. You can drop Justin Schultz pretty safely. Next is Kevin Shattenkirk, Anaheim Ducks, 26% owned. And the Ducks really suck right now. So just like anybody else on the team, except for John Gibson, you can drop him pretty easily right now. Next is Eric Chernak, Tampa Bay Lightning, 21% owned. And he doesn't really contribute anything across the board. Easy drop. Next is Eric Gustafson, Philadelphia Flyers, 13% owned. And he's been a healthy scratch twice in the last couple of weeks. I'd rather someone who can stick in my lineup. Next is Nikita Zaitsev, Ottawa Senators, 9% owned. And if you have Zaitsev in your lineup right now, you have a pretty big problem on defense. You should really drop Zaitsev and look for other options. Let's jump into some goalies now. And first on the list is Brian Elliott, Philadelphia Flyers, 30% owned. And outside of the very, very deepest of leagues, I would drop Brian Elliott because he's only going to be getting about 1/3 of Philadelphia's games. If you really, really need those games and you're in a deep league, fine. Elliott is not the worst option, but honestly, in the vast majority of leagues, he can be dropped. Next on the list is Matt Murray, Ottawa Senators, 28% owned, and Ottawa's just really been sucking. Murray's not even starting all the games, so he's a pretty easy drop right now. Next is Martin Jones, San Jose Sharks, 14% owned, and if you're really desperate for a goalie and you want a San Jose goalie, Devin Dubnyk is the guy to grab right now. Martin Jones is just not doing very well. Next is Alex Stalock, Minnesota Wild, 14% owned, and he may not even play this year, and when he comes back, he'll probably come back as the number 3 goalie in Minnesota. Really easy drop. Next is Carter Hutton, Buffalo Sabres, 7% owned, and Olmark's looking really, really good right now, so anyone who is banking on Carter Hutton being that starter in Buffalo, well, you can drop him now. Last but not least, guys, I have 2 players here that are being dropped in a lot of leagues, but I don't suggest dropping them just yet. First is Bobby Ryan, Detroit Red Wings, 27% owned, and Detroit has a really, really nice off-night schedule this week. So I would drop Bobby Ryan after Sunday night, but not before that. The other guy is Alexandre Texier, Columbus Blue Jackets, 15% owned, and it looks like he's the one that's getting to center Patrick Laine on his line, and he's also playing on that top power play with Patrick Laine. So I would hold on to him and see how he does for at least 3 or 4 games before you drop him. All right, that's it, guys. You've reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a comment, let me know how I can improve these videos. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.